This is Gigi reading from Food-Wise. I'm aiming for a page a day, although I've been cutting my reading short a bit so I can tell you about a couple of newspaper articles so relevant to what our concerns are right now. First, I'll read a little bit. Food-Wise from page 7. My personal misadventures as a confirmed foodie encompass more than illness. There was the lovely cream and fresh fruit-filled cake I insisted on for my July wedding in London. By the time we got to the church, it had slumped into a tasty slurry. A dozen Polish in-laws were not amused, but refreezing the creamy mess resulted in a delicious addition to the traditional menu. Recently, I unknowingly cooked plain rolled oats as I usually cook rough cut oats and ended up with a pot of solid mush. One fall, I tried mixing dry hard cider with a friend's raspberry wine and got what tasted like weak coffee with too much sugar. Homemade bread with wheat berries I hadn't soaked. Unchilled pie crust that completely melted in the oven. Yogurt without enough starter to set, which nevertheless became a refreshing drink. So many failed college dishes just because I didn't pay attention to cooking times, amounts, and was a little too frugal on substitutions that didn't work. But some did. Water, not milk, and my scrambled eggs was nonetheless tasty. Overcooked meat, a lot of overcooked meat, was especially painful after I had enthusiastically left behind years of vegetarianism. Does any of this sound familiar? At some level, all of us care about food. We experiment with ingredients and with taste. We cook and sample and guess. Caring deeply about food need not mean hours in the kitchen and a high grocery bill. I've made it my personal and professional goal to experience food in all its aspects. That experience includes preparing soil beds and working in compost, making cheese, and milling grains. But not everyone has or wants these opportunities. On the professional side, I have taught thousands of students and written many articles and blog entries over 30 years. I've become a book review editor and served on editorial boards for academic journals, as well as started one. I've read hundreds of student assignments and scholarly papers, watched dozens of cooking shows on television, and combed cookbooks and pestered overseas travel hosts for tasty recipes. Has it been a straightforward journey? Never. But my strong relationship with food has kept me ever curious and ever cooking. It's gotten my hands in the dirt and my own homegrown vegetables on the table. We don't all have these inclinations or opportunities, so part of my purpose here is to share ways you can consciously experience food with or without the time and money to deeply explore the agricultural web. Why? Because experience-based thinking is an important part of our Food-Wise guidelines. What a perfect place to end with a note on a Washington Post story on victory gardens. Return to victory gardens, people planting their own seeds and starts to contribute to their own and thus on some level the national food supply. And I'll post the Washington Post article, but I know that they spend quite a bit of time talking about preparing the soil. And in fact, I just started teaching today 2 online classes. One is an agroecology and sustainable agriculture class, where the first assignment is to prepare a seed bed and to plant a garden. And then the other class is a writing proficiency class. So in this Washington Post article, they talk about choosing a site, and it's a little meticulous sounding and with sunlight and slope just so, the aspect the water that's available, a little bit on the soil itself, and fencing. Fencing, of course, so important. If you've got hungry grazers and browsers that want to eat your growing vegetables. Yes. However, I want to say that planting a garden could be as simple as taking a few sunflower seeds and planting those seeds in an already potted plant, depending on what the plant is, depending on what the soil is like. But you can certainly raise some of your food in planters that are dedicated to growing fruits and vegetables as well. So it is easier than you think. And that is the experience part of FoodWise. Then on a more somber note, in the Bellingham Herald, they talk about how coronavirus is affecting farmers. And in my little part of the world, and I talk about this in FoodWise, we are a food basket for a number of commodities. Salmon, if we can talk about salmon as a commodity, raspberries, other soft fruit, and dairy. And that's what is discussed in the article. And dairy farmers are hurting right now in terms of the prices they're getting for their milk. Raspberry farmers are going to need labor for mid-May. And that's only about a month away. And so the article is worth taking a look at because it looks at some of the challenges in our agricultural web, the web that I talk about in FoodWise, because they are real and they are there.